Recently, I woke up to a storm of WhatsApp messages in my inbox. And it wasn't only messages like, is this true? Oh my God, is this really happening? But there were clipped videos and there was like contextless commentary that I saw. There was this false narrative in these videos that were basically born overnight. And I was at the center of this manufactured lie. So not only was it amplified, but it was packaged by YouTube creators, what I call the new self-appointed arbiters of truth, who have no evidence, no analysis. They just create this clickbait conviction, algorithm-fed performance, sloppy paraphrasing, content masquerading as journalism. And it spread fast. But this is not my first time to this movie. I've been here before, actually many times. And this time, I said, let me take a step back and look at all of this that's actually happening over by TikTok and all over the place, and the WhatsApp messages flooding. And I said, in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. That's what resonated with me. That's what came up in my soul. Because if I've learned anything in my lifetime being a public figure, it's when everybody is shouting, silence is revolutionary. And particularly in this digital age, truth doesn't just compete with lies, it competes with distraction. So we're surrounded by knowledge, drenched in information, but many of us choose to swallow these very shallow lack of substance, surface streams over much deeper currents. We chase trends, we don't chase truth, we don't chase affirmation, we don't even chase understanding, because we've become cultures of reaction, not reflection, and we rarely ask, is this water clean? We just say, well, if it's popular. So how did we get here? How did we lose the quiet compass of discernment? Why do we forward messages 10 times, 100 times without even checking its source, not even one time to say, well, let me check to see if this is right. You just get a message that says forward many times, there's a great hook, and you just send it forward. This is not an accident. These platforms are engineered for conformity. They reward echo chambers. They punish nuance. So the more the narrative is shared, the more it's believed. And the more controversial it is, the faster it spreads. And the more you put a name that's popular in the social media space, it moves. And the herd moves with it. So once that first wildebeest hears that drop, that crack, that snap, that distraction, and it's not just online. We see it in the markets, we see it in politics, we see it in our daily discourse. There was a study that was done this February 2025, and it was done in Vietnam. And they found a very strong link between herd behavior and FOMO in their financial markets. And what they saw was that investors were driven by the fear of missing out, and they followed the crowd, especially in times of volatility. Does it sound familiar? Because we're not really investing anymore, we're chasing. We're not thinking, we're reacting. And so the markets are not even moving on value, but on momentum, not on understanding, but this urgent anxiety to do what everybody else is doing. It's like some of the farmers I know in my constituency. Everybody planting cabbage, so they plant cabbage. Not thinking, well, what if I do something else? Warren Buffett considered one of the world's greatest investors, calls this kind of herd behavior a lemming effect, especially when you're investing in the financial markets. And if you know what a lemming is, it's a rodent, and you can see if one lemming is going to jump off a ship, the entire 1,000 of them are following that one lemming, and they're going to drown. And what he says is that by following the crowd, you're going straight into regret. Because real success, not only in financial markets, but in life and in leadership, comes from independent thought. It comes from courage. It comes from the courage to stand alone. It comes from conviction, not from imitation. And this is the crisis that I see in my time, in our time, in your time. Because we're consuming more, but we're understanding less. And we're hyper-informed, but we're deeply disconnected. Right now, there are 5 billion people globally, approximately 64% of the world's population, who spends at least 2.5 hours online just scrolling. That's a lot of information that they're seeing, but they're disconnected. In business, it shows up as blind investment. Just this month alone, May 2025, There was over 10 billion US dollars that was poured into AI crypto tokens, while other local, perhaps impactful real ventures were overlooked. Why? Because those weren't sexy. They weren't trending. They weren't like, hey, look at me. But everybody else was buying AI. And so that kind of ad hoc urgency, blindness, has a cost, and it has a personal one. McKinsey reported that over 2/3 of Gen Z say that social media harms their mental health. They get anxiety, fatigue, the urge to disconnect because they get so fearful, and still the pressure to conform persists. Because if you're not a part of that herd, you don't feel like you are part of something. But here's the truth that many people refuse to confront. Real change, real impactful change, it doesn't happen in a crowd. It happens and begins at the margins. It begins in clarity. It begins in conviction, in silence, actually. Because the ones who actually change the world aren't the loudest. They are the most grounded. And we know this in the Caribbean because some of our greatest minds, or artists, or musicians, or leaders, or revolutionaries, or outliers, they were never a part of the mainstream chorus. They stood apart. They asked harder questions. They found water where none appeared to flow. And in this moment, it demands that same kind of courage. The courage to pause, the courage to think differently, the challenge of what is obvious, to have dissent, to have disagreement, to stop mistaking visibility for value and virality or virality, things that go viral for virtue. It's not. Because there's water all around us. There's creativity, there's innovation, there's wisdom. But if we keep drinking what the crowd drinks or what is being stuffed down our throats, we will never find the deeper wells within ourselves. And so this is not, Lisa's not calling you to isolation. I don't want you to retreat. This is a call to intention. I want you to intentionally commit to discernment, to courage. I want you to intentionally commit to discipline in the age of distraction. We can't keep living in a world where insight is drowned out by influence, or you will never have the emotional intelligence to make informed decisions even about your own life. And so we can't keep doing this, not even as a nation that's facing critical choices, especially as the global uncertainty keeps pressing in and knocking on our door and every single door around the world. This herd behavior that I'm talking about, that chooses to follow lies without questioning whether it is true, or as Bob Marley calls it, you're part of this rat race, it's not just reckless, it's dangerous. Because sound bites aren't strategy. Showmanship is not substance. And tossing around the word change isn't a plan, it's theater. Because the lights always dim, the slogans fade, and when they do, what's left is not noise, but truth. And so you have to find the truth, you have to seek it. You have to choose to stand alone or stand on truth, even when it's inconvenient, even when it was quiet. Yeah. Because, now, in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. But not because the springs have run dry or that there is no water, but because he never learned to tell water from the mirage of what he's seeing. So he thinks it's water, and he's thirsty. So we have to teach our children not just how to access information, but how to interrogate it, how to question what they see, how to pause before they believe. Because if we do not shape their discernment, the world is going to shape their confusion. So let us not be fools. Let us be seekers. Let us be watchful. Let us be wise. And let us be still enough to see clearly and to be bold enough to choose what truly sustained. Because I can tell you this, if you have or is brave enough to walk away from the crowd, to find that deeper well within, I can guarantee you that your life will move in a different way. And so as you do that, take a step back this week. Ask yourself as you scroll, as you hear the rumors, as you see the videos, as you get the WhatsApps that say forward many times, just do a search. And especially when my name comes up, rather than just believe it and walk away and say, yes, man, that is so, do the investigation.